Hi, I'm Lisa Larson, founder of Mindful Corporate Mastery. This is the podcast for leaders and high performers navigating pressure, decisions, and the demands of modern work. Each episode explores how to think more clearly, make better decisions, and sustain high performance without running yourself into the ground. Today, we're talking about one of the most common thinking traps I see in both leaders and everyday professional life: the assumption, story, and pressure cycle. Let's get into it. Most people don't realize they're operating inside this cycle because it just happens so incredibly fast. Something happens, you make an assumption, your brain starts to build a story around that assumption. The story creates pressure, and then that pressure influences your next decision. The challenge here is that none of that quick rationalization your brain made was based on any type of facts. Here are some examples. You've been waiting for a response to an important email. Someone cancels a meeting at the last minute with no explanation. You get a brief Slack message. Got a minute? Someone on your team misses a critical deadline. You're about to have a tough conversation. Your leader tells you about an unexpected change in priorities with no context. Within seconds of each of these events, your brain begins filling in the blanks with assumptions and stories. Once you start adding interpretations to that story, your emotions begin responding as if the story were true. I have experienced this countless times throughout my own career, not just as an executive leading teams, but as a professional trying to manage competing priorities, deadlines, expectations, and uncertainty. Here are things that happen to me. A client would go dark and stop responding to emails or meeting requests, and I'd start assuming something had to be wrong. A project would hit a roadblock, and I'd immediately start imagining worst case scenarios. I'd start asking myself, "Oh my gosh, what would happen if this fails? What is my boss going to think? What about my peers?" I would schedule a difficult conversation and then spend hours preparing for every possible outcome that actually never happened. It wasn't the event itself that created the pressure, it was the story that I kept telling myself about why the event occurred that created the pressure. And that's an incredibly important distinction because, like many of us, I was walking through my day carrying pressure that wasn't actually real. It came from some interpretation, a story I'd told myself. The pressure I created was perceived and not real. High performers are especially susceptible to this. We train to anticipate risk. In the field of high pressure roles like technology or cybersecurity, in which I developed my leadership skills, risk management was extremely important. I was trained to solve problems, think ahead, uncover gaps to mitigate any type of risk. Look, those are valuable skills, but under pressure, those same strengths become liabilities. When you're constantly anticipating and waiting for the next bad thing to happen, you start anticipating risk for everything, and that changes how you think. You now treat each event as a potential problem or issue. Anticipating a bad outcome becomes an assumption. Analysis becomes overthinking. You gameplay multiple negative outcomes. The preparation that you do turns into rumination and worry, and you're trying to ensure that there's no minor hiccup. And when the story takes over without even realizing it, we make decisions based on imagined outcomes instead of present reality. This is when reactivity starts taking over. It's not because we're incapable of dealing with whatever outcome, it's because we're just cognitively overloaded. Science shows us that an overloaded brain will choose certainty over accuracy. It wants to keep us safe, so it creates a story rather than tolerating any type of ambiguity. So, how do we break this cycle? The first step is learning to separate facts from stories and assumptions. Here's a simple reflection you can do to stop the cycle when you feel a story starting to fill in the blanks. Step one: what do I know? What do I actually know? Not what I think or what I'm afraid of or what I predict could happen. What do I actually know about this event? When you write it down, you may discover that the verifiable facts are just a few bullets and everything else is interpretation. Step two: recognize and label the pressure you're feeling before it takes control. Again, pressure can convince us that every decision is urgent. That pressure has us reacting to every email with an immediate response. Every problem feels like it requires an instant solution. Everything that feels uncertain needs to be examined and resolved right now because of that pressure. But here's an important truth: urgency and importance are not the same thing. When you feel that pressure rising, pause and ask, does this actually require a decision right now? Or is it just that I'm uncomfortable not knowing and it's feeling ambiguous? That reflection alone can help you stop and break the cycle. The third step is to replace the certainty of the story with curiosity. When your brain presents a story, challenge it, but do it without judgment. Stop and take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, is what I'm telling myself right now, is that really true? What else could be true? What information might I be missing that would lead me to reinterpret this story? What assumptions am I making about this particular event? When you start to lead with curiosity, you create space, and that allows your brain to slow down. When your brain slows down, better decisions emerge. The goal here isn't to eliminate assumptions completely. That's impossible. And sometimes we have to make decisions quickly using all available information to us at the time that the decision is required. Sometimes we can't continue to analyze it. The goal is to notice when assumptions, stories, and pressure are driving your thinking instead of basing the decision on the facts that you have at the time the decision needs to be made. You're trying to make that decision based on facts, not stories or assumptions. Whether you're leading a team, building a business, managing a project, navigating your career, or just simply trying to keep up with the demands of modern life, the information you use to make decisions shapes the quality of outcomes. The quality of those decisions depend on the clarity of your thinking. Before I end today, I'd like to leave you with just a simple reflection. Think about a situation that's currently occupying your attention and ask yourself, what are the facts? Is there a story? Am I building some assumption into this event? What's the pressure that I'm feeling right now? And what would change if I separated all those things? After the reflection, you might just find that the clarity you've been searching for wasn't hidden. It was just buried beneath the assumptions and stories and mental noise. Thank you for listening to the Clarity Under Pressure. If this episode resonated with you, follow the show and share it with someone who could benefit from it. And if you're ready to strengthen your own decision clarity, join the 5-Day Clarity Challenge. 5 simple exercises designed to help you identify what's really driving your priorities, decisions, and attention. Because better decisions start with clearer thinking. Until next time, stay intentional, stay curious, and create space for clarity under pressure.